Alrighty, a little while ago I showed you guys the car seat cover, the little switch box. That's the heated seat cover that I was trying to use as an improvised 12-volt electric blanket. Now, there are other options that you can use. If you have plenty of wind power, or you have a device such as the Devil Watt, which uses thermoelectric generation, like Peltier devices more or less, to charge your batteries in winter off your wood stove. Some of their systems are pretty good, and they're not cheap either, but some of them have got built-in multi-power point trackers, MPPT, charge controllers, and the whole shebang. They do up to 75 watts, I think, is the newest model. If you've got a device like that, or you've got micro hydro, or you've got wind turbines, or something of that nature, and you've got plenty of power in the winter, or even if you don't have that much power in the winter, stuff like that is an option for a electric blanket in the winter. But there's more than just that you can use. Now you may think, well, why can't I use a Peltier? You sort of can. There's a bit of bullshit, because the Peltier has a hot side and a cold side, and you know, while if you were to get a Peltier and use a bit of that, there's conductive tape. This is the sort of stuff they use in between heat sinks and CPUs. There's conductive tape, there's conductive paste. You'll also find it in amplifier systems between the big transistors and usually a heat sink. I think I've got, actually I do have like a good example. So some of it, it's like a sort of white shit basically. It's supposed to, you're not really supposed to touch it with your skin, at least with the older stuff. And there's non-conductive and there's conductive. We're talking electrically. There's one that's 25% silver, and that's conductive, and then you've got other stuff, basically like the shit that goes in between your transformers here. Jeez, I'm sick of this phone and its bloody light levels. It always goes suddenly dark. Yeah, still a bit there, but I think it's washed off in the rain a bit. White stuff that goes in between that and your heat sink. There's another heat sink. Yeah, there's a bit there still on the screws and whatnot. We can see. But that's your heat conductive paste. Now you could get a Peltier and basically stick it on a sheet of aluminium, and then using very short screws, screw that sheet of aluminium underneath your bed to your wooden bed slates or something like that. Bit of a stupid idea, because a Peltier has got a hot side and a cool side, and quite simply, as you're warming up this big aluminium sheet, you've also got the other cold side, which is probably getting like little icicle crystals on it, and you're not really doing anything to heat your room, unless you can somehow bring outside air in, and that outside air is warm enough to actually warm up the cold side of the Peltier and then back out. But that involves putting 2 holes in your blasted wall. It's just stupid. It's pointless. It's too much effort. But there is another option that you probably never saw coming, really didn't see coming at all, although it's so obvious and it's so easy to come by, especially, hopefully the wind doesn't catch the microphone, especially if you're a hillbilly and you got what most hillbillies have, which is an excessive amount of frickin' vehicles laying everywhere. And believe me, when I saw the first Google map overhead view of my place, the first thing I thought was, holy cow, do I have that many old cars laying around? And the answer was yes, I did. It's simple. It's so bloody simple you wouldn't see it coming. The rear demist in your vehicle. To transfer the heat, believe it or not, I'm going to talk about silver yet again, but believe it or not, to transfer the heat through to the rest of your window, not only is there some sort of a nichrome, which is your general heat resistance wire that you have in kettles and all that sort of shit, it's actually got silver in there to try and transfer the heat from the nichrome into the glass. So there's nichrome and there's a layer of silver in those little red lines. You remember the older vehicles, which I might hit the pause button and go and show you one. I don't think it's got it. I was given an old vehicle in the 60s and it had a massive one. I've got another vehicle in the 60s, but I don't think it's got one on the back. They used to have really big ones, and some of them were aftermarket, and they're basically like not even from the factory, and they'd be stuck on, I believe. The thing with this is you can probably run these straight off 12 volts. Some of the older vehicles that I've had, and I don't think this is one that's quite... Oh no, I know how they've done it with these. Little friggin' cover. Shit, can't see it. There's a little cap cover thing. And that would go into prongs. But I had another vehicle that actually had spades, like spade fittings on the damn thing, and you plug the spades in. And that was how you'd power this. But these, yeah, they let out heat. There's no question about it. You had one of these under your bed, you'd be fine. Sure, you'd have to make a little rig. You'd probably have to hang it off a bit of friggin' string or some shit like that. But the other interesting thing with some of these is they take a bloody lot to crack. This is not like a bird hitting a shitty window in a house and shattering it. This stuff, like, you got to really give it a slam to crack it. So don't be so worried about it going kaboom, although this one's a replacement that I've only had for a month or two because it had a little bit of a thermal expansion problem and did actually go boom right about here. I think it's a design flaw because this one also warms up here first. I don't know exactly why, but yeah, that's one option. There may be a resistor in the switch in the dashboard. If it's an old shit box and you're not using it anymore, take the switch out and see. Look online at some of the car forums and see if there's a resistor in the switch. But most likely, there's not a resistor in the switch at all. And if the car is still good, whack a battery in the damn thing and check what the volts are by pulling the spades off or the connections. Just clip them off and check, not too close so you can still got to solder stuff on, but check what the volts are coming through. I don't think there'd be any reason why it wouldn't be 12 volt. I don't see any reason why they would put a resistor past there. The other one, you need bloody big leads, and you might be able to use another big bit of wire to do this, although you probably naturally get a little bit of resistance, maybe 20 ohms, maybe 50 ohms, is to actually go from, take both battery terminals off, do a resistance test on basically the positive battery terminal and the positive where it hooks into the back window. And if there is some resistance there, it may have 20 ohms or 50 ohms naturally, but if there is quite a bit of resistance, you might want to take the switch out and see if there's not a resistor on the back of the switch, so you've got to gently get the switch out of the dashboard. If you can find where the switch just comes straight out, or you got the switch in your hand on its own, also do a resistance check and see if it's full flow or there's restricted current, and then you will know. But I don't see why they wouldn't be just straight 12 volts, so that's an option there. Sorry about this wind. How many times the light levels stuff up, the wind blows, everything else turns to shit. And don't worry about it. There's quite a few videos that I've had to remake from scratch purely out of wind, and I get sick of making videos 2 or 3 times to show you one thing just because some manufacturer can't build a decent microphone over in South Korea. Anyway, the other option, you may not have been right into electronics as I have been. Soldering irons. Now this is a big banger. This is what I was using, doing the battery terminals for the 135 watt 12 volt water pump for the hot water system that I showed the other day. That's an 80 watt. I thought it was a 90, whatever. These produce plenty of heat, as you can imagine, more than the average electric blanket, in fact. But Link, how do I do anything with it? You know that is there? That's a screw. You undo that screw, and you can pull your head out there. And you know what this is? Solid copper. Pretty much, usually. And what you can do is you can get another piece of copper that goes inside the same depth as that will, and try and either braze that copper to another sheet of copper. Probably best not to solder it because it'll just bloody well fall off because it'll get hot enough. But if you could braze it on, or even put a bit of, I don't know if steel would be conductive enough. And the other thing is you don't necessarily need to braze it on. I don't think you could weld it on. Unless you have an aluminium capable MIG welder. And the other option is to use a big bit of aluminium rod that you, well, just get a big lump of aluminium and whack it in a lathe and make it into a rod about the same thickness and slip that in, and then use an aluminium MIG welder to weld onto a big sheet of aluminium. The other thing is you don't need a weld at all. Definitely don't solder, either braze or weld. But what you can also do is actually bolt the damn thing on. And you can get things like, a bit like electrical connections. You could probably quite literally use electrical connections that are, those of you who do house systems will know what I'm saying. It's basically like you've got a little circle, and then you've got, somebody's drilled a hole and tapped out a thread in one side of that circle, and then you've got a screw that goes through that tapped out bit of thread hole, and you basically clamp down onto the bit of wire that goes through your circle. If you can find something like that, something where you can basically get a bit of aluminium rod and clamp onto it and have that attached to the aluminium sheet or a copper sheet or a brass sheet or whatever, something that's got some sort of a transferability better than steel, then you could use these to act as heating. And you say, well, that's friggin' hopeless, it's a mains plug. Think again. These are available from most auto parts stores. Cigarette lighter plug, and this one does say, yeah, 12 volt, 30 watts, and same thing, a little screw there, and you, ooh, I probably should tighten the screw. Be careful, kitty. And yeah, replace that tip with another piece of copper or even aluminium. I don't really recommend steel because they don't really, it just doesn't have the heat transfer qualities of brass, copper or aluminium. And the other thing is, as for mains powered ones, if you've got no trouble leaving your inverter switched on, you can get mains powered ones right down to 15 watts, and I had one, and it was a bit of a temperamental piece of crap, but it was made for soldering surface mount devices, if you know what they are. So that's another option, but there's yet another option again, and you'll see that here. What I was talking about before, about the possible resistance for the red mist for the back window of your car. If there is a resistance that you find, you need to keep that resistance for it to run properly and not short out. That's why I was hammering on about checking the switch and all that sort of stuff. Now this is your other option. Interesting, isn't it? Propagation heat mat. Most of these are mains powered. I would not be surprised if there are older ones that were pretty low, that were 12 volt or something, but low wattage, 24 watts. That's nothing. This little white one they've got here, it's just a black one on top. They did have a picture of just the straight white one. They've just got the black tray sitting on top of it. That only takes 9 watts. Now the thing is, with a lot of these, you get flexible ones here as well. The thing is, with a lot of these, they're waterproof. So if you've got a little kid who wets the bed, it's not a big deal because it's not going to short out because it's waterproof. In fact, some of them even have thermostats. A lot of them just say, we do 10 degrees Celsius or 12 degrees Celsius or 26 degrees Celsius above whatever the existing temperature is, above ambient. But some of them are actually set up with thermostats. There is one mob here, which I won't show, that actually makes customised ones, but they're bloody giant. Thermostats you can set from 0 to 40 degrees Celsius. That's more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's your other option there. They range from about $78 to $123 for the sort that you probably use to mount underneath your bed to keep you warm. Once again, this would be something that you just sort of probably get a few plastic strips or even a bit of string or whatever, you know, bit of something to help hold it in place. Maybe even a few zip ties all strung together. I thought I'd show you that as well because it's rather interesting, and these are waterproof.